and this was considered a siman on a keli. The person had his name on a keli. So sometimes the Gemara will discuss and talk about if there's a siman, then you have to be machris. If it's no siman, sometimes they would make a mark, and sometimes they would actually put their name on a specific keli. Another very, very interesting thing that we also have is, just like I showed you an oil lamp that had a picture of the keli for wine that matches the coin that Shimon bar Kochva minted, that shows a keli of wine. There is another coin that was minted by Shimon bar Kochva that has a picture on one side of the front of the Beis Hamikdash, and on the other side has a lulav and an esrog. And it says in Ksav Ivri, in the old Hebrew script, Shimon Nasi Yisrael. This is one of the best ones in the world, showing the coin on both sides. Now what's very fascinating, if you look closely at the keshetel on this lulav, you're going to see that there's an esrog, there's a lulav, 2 aravis, and a lot of hadassim. And you can see the details of the tremendous amount of hadassim. It shows us how they were making their keshetel on their lulav. And it also shows us something else that's important. Chabad uses 53 hadassim, because in the Zohar it says gan, and the tikkun of chet eitz hadas is the inyan of gan, of the inyan of 53 hadassim. There's a machloikis if the eitz hadas was an esrog or an apple. So one of the tikkun that the Zohar writes is to use the dalet minimum is a tikkun on the eitz hadas. So here you see that this minhag of taking 53 hadassim, or a lot of hadassim, can even be seen on the coin of Shimon bar Kochva. Furthermore, the other side that has a picture of the front of the Beis Hamikdash, which we previously discussed, we also have an oil lamp that has a picture of the columns, the front of the Beis Hamikdash, which matches the coin of Shimon bar Kochva. And this is a very, very rare Jewish oil lamp that has the same image of the front of the Beis Hamikdash that can be seen with the columns here as well. And this black is from being lit 2,000 years ago. You can see 5 nozzle oil lamp. You could put 5 psilos in the same oil lamp. Just like it says, Shtei piyos l'shnei b'nei adam, this was an oil lamp. You could put 5 piyos, 5 edges in the same oil lamp. It has a ring so that you can hold it, or if you were walking, like you have a flashlight, this was how people would walk and carry their oil lamps. And what's unique is that it still has its original handle intact. Oil lamps were interesting because every melech, every kingdom made its own style oil lamp. And in fact, Josephus writes about this. The Chashmonaim, the Maccabees, had a very unique style oil lamp. They made a hamantash type of oil lamp. Their oil lamp looked like a hamantash. That's what Josephus writes. And right here is a 2,000-year-old Chashmonaim Maccabean oil lamp. And even scientists today still refer to this style oil lamp as the Maccabean, the Chashmonaim oil lamp. The oil would go here, the psila, the wick, would go here. And this is called a Maccabean style oil lamp. Hardus, King Herod the Great, made his own style oil lamp. And this is called a Herodian oil lamp. an oil lamp from the style of Hortus. And every king wanted to make a certain style, so that even years later they would be remembered for their style. Just like today we have Italian style furniture, colonial American style. Each one has its own style. These kingdoms would make their own style as well. And going back to that, the Yevanim, the Greeks, made also a certain painted style. And this was considered a footed bowl, like a little serving plate, with a beautiful Greek design, painted. And these circular type of things was made by the Yevanim, the Greeks. Now the Mishnah discusses this kind of keli. This keli has a stand. What happens if you turn it over? You can put something in here as well. Is it considered a base kibble on the bottom piece also? And sometimes you have the toich of the keli, the gav of the keli, all the different chalakim that I discussed in the Mishnah. You can see it here as well, what the Mishnah is talking about. So these items represent very specific styles common in the time of the end of Vayesheni and the Mishnah. And the Gemara mentions many of these things that you can see here in our museum. One of the things that Chazal mentioned was called a gluskema. What was a gluskema? So the Gemara says that a merchant, a soicher, would, just like you have a trunk today, would take his gluskema from town to town, and he would fill it up. If it was a moicher of spices, he would fill up his spices. He would come to the middle of the marketplace. He would open up his gluskema, and he would sell his merchandise. These were called gluskemais. There were two types of gluskemais. One was a gluskema that was for burial purposes, that they used to bury people. This is not that kind of gluskema. Those were very small, and they would make them the size of the bone of the largest bone of the person's body, and they were made very, very small. Then there were the gluskemais that the Gemara refers to that were made for sachrim, for a person who was selling. And these were these very large, like you have a trunk today, this was your box. This particular one is fascinating. Beautifully carved. And right over here, at the top corner, it says in Greek letters, in Yevonis, we were just talking about Greek, it says, Yosifun, Josephus, merchant of spices. Soicher of spices. This is not Yosifun, who wrote the history of the Yidden. This is a person who wrote and made a siman on his keli. Yosifun, merchant of spices. So exactly what Chazal tell us, that the people used to go from one marketplace to the other marketplace and sell their merchandise and open up their gluskema and sell directly out of it. And they could, this is a 2,100-year-old gluskema with the Greek inscription. And this is a fascinating thing, because you see the detail of the designs that were carved in here, how it was beautifully done, and with the name of the person on this particular gluskema. This right here is another Greek keli, painted beautifully, with some of the original design that still could be seen here. And this again was a style that the Yevanim, the Greeks, would use. And that was a very specific style known and used by the Yevanim, the Greeks, at that specific time. One of the things we learn about in Chumash, V'sadita oisei basid, and you're going to put plaster. And plaster, just as we plaster walls today, were very commonly done in the ancient world. This was found in Masada. It's a piece of wall, piece of plaster. The paint and the design is already gone, but this is a 2,000-year-old piece of sid, of plaster. And this is from one of the walls of the palace of Masada. Another very, very important thing is The Gemara always talks about a merchatz, a bathhouse. Now, just like the bathrooms in your house have tiles, tiles in bathtubs, in base merchatzes, in bathhouses, became very, very common. Here is a piece of an actual bathhouse with the rows of tiles. And this is very, very important. This was coming from Masada as well. We also have from the city of Caesarea, the city where Rabbi Akiva was killed. These are actual tiles from a bathhouse that was found in Caesarea. A person by the name of David Hirsch, who's a Baal Tshuva today, in the 1970s was in Caesarea, and he found these bath tiles from a bathhouse, and he donated it here. He's from Los Angeles, California, and he donated it to the museum. And we also have a few loose tiles of different colors, and they are also bath tiles. So the same concept of you have a bathtub with tiles in your bathroom, Ein Kol Chadash Tachas HaShemesh. They had tiles and they had bathhouses. The Sadatoy Sebasid, they had plaster, the same things they had in the ancient world as well. Just as you have today big columns, amudim, and beautiful capitals, this is carved out of stone. And right here is an actual beautiful piece of stone. This right here is a beautiful piece of column. On the top of the column was the capital, and you could see the beautiful designs that are carved out of a single piece of limestone, a single piece of limestone, this whole beautiful design, and it weighs quite a bit. This is a small column. One of the most amazing things you will see here in the museum is something that's very, very touching. When Titus came to destroy the second Beis Hamikdash, Yosefin tells us that he came with the 10th legion of the Roman army, the Centa Legion from the Römische Armee. In America, when we talk about the American army, we talk about the American legions. In fact, I have a branch of our museum in the Catskills in Fallsburg, New York. And the building which we bought for the museum used to be called the American Legion building. In Chazal, they're called legiones. On Tisha B'Av, in Nachem, we talk about the legiones, the Roman soldiers, the Roman legions. And Yosefin tells us that which group of soldiers came to destroy the Beis Hamikdash? The Centa Legion, the 10th legion of the Roman army. 9 years ago, they were building a parking lot in Yerushalayim, and they found the military headquarters of Titus. And one of the things they found are 1,200 of these bricks, that on every single brick there is an inscription. It says on it, L-E-G, Legion, X-10, F-R, Frentis Roma, from the Roman army. Like you would write today, property of the United States Army, 102nd Airborne Division. This says L-E-G, Legion, X-10, Frentis Roma. You're looking at a piece of brick that was once part of the military headquarters of Titus, exactly as it's described in Yosefin, that they were the group of soldiers that destroyed the second Beis Hamikdash. Not only do we have that, but the most fascinating item that you will see in this particular tape today, in this particular shiur, has to do with the Beis Hamikdash. We know that everything of the Beis Hamikdash was considered coinage. But one of the things we also know, as the Gemara in Bechoros Daf Nun tells us, that when the Eibishter went to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, he was mesalik the Kedusha away from the Beis Hamikdash. And just as we know that a Yid is allowed to take money, the Gemara has a question. A lot of gold and silver of the Beis Hamikdash was taken away by the Romans. And not only was it taken away, we're not talking about kalim, we're talking about money from the Lishka, the Gemara says. So the Gemara says that Hadrayana and Trajana Malka, Hadrian and Trajan, melted down money, silver of the Beis Hamikdash, and they made coins out of it. And in a special tape which we're about to make on the ancient currency and coins of the ancient world, you will see some of these coins that were minted down from the silver and gold of the Beis Hamikdash. And there's no din kedusha. So the Gemara says, Omar, Rabbi Chanina says, they wanted bikshu lignois kol kesev v'zav sheba'olam. They wanted to put away all the gold and silver of the world. Ad shematzu, until they found the pasuk in Yecheskel, that the Eibishter was mesalik the kedusha, and then the goyim came. So therefore, even for a pidyon aben, the Gemara says, you're allowed to use gold and silver coins that Hadrayanis and Trajana Malka minted, because there's no din kedusha. And even in that time, for a pidyon aben, you were allowed to use it, and there's no isser of gold and silver. The Gemara concludes, and the Rambam paskins the Salah halacha, that something that was broken from the Beis Hamikdash has no din kedusha, because the kedusha was nostalgic. We're not talking about a whole keli, we're talking about a broken piece of something. Now if you go to the Kaisel today, you will see that the stones all have a border around it. There's the middle of the stone, and then there's like a design all around the stone that Hardus, King Herod the Great, built. And the Gemara tells us why. Hardus originally wanted to put gold all around the center, should be rock, and the sides he should be all with gold. He never completed that. So therefore, a broken piece doesn't have a kedusha, and this is what all the Rabbunim who are involved with our museum paskin. And that's Rabbi Yisrael Belsky, Rabbi David Cohen, Rabbi Cheskel Roth, Rabbi Yom all have gone through this specific inyan. What I'm about to show you is just like you have the koisel. The koisel is not the wall of the Beis Hamikdash. Man shemachatus, they make a mistake, they think it's the wall of the Beis Hamikdash. It was the wall around Harabais. And each stone had this design that Hardus made on the border around the stone. This comes and was found in Yerushalayim. It's a broken piece. Nicht of the Koisel Hamaruvi, not of the western wall, but of the southern wall. And you can see the same style stone. And you can see the design, the piece of where this border would come from. And this is the piece that the Gemara says they wanted to put gold all around, and you can see the border. What's very interesting about limestone is the Beis Hamikdash was made out of these avonim, and these what was a limestone. It was a very beautiful stone, and it was easy to carve. And also, limestone was a very combustible stone. It would burn very easily. Yosifan tells us that when Titus came to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, he took avukoi shel esh, torches of fire, and they stuck the fire between the stones. The stones got very hot, and they were literally exploding, jumping off the walls, because limestone is a combustible stone. What's very unique about this stone is I'm going to show you the back of the stone. You can see the burn marks in the stone and the bubbling that happens. When something starts burning and bubbling, it gets burn marks and it bubbles from the heat. And all along here you can see the bubbling and the burn marks in the stone. And you're looking at a stone that burnt on Tisha B'Av in Yerushalayim. all along here, you can see the actual burn marks in the stone. So you're looking at a stone that burnt on Tisha B'Av in Yerushalayim. And this is one of the most emotional pieces that we have here in the museum. And there's no din kedusha for it. And it is amazing to see an actual stone that's not from the Beis Hamikdash itself. It's on the wall around Har HaBayis, the southern wall. And there's no din kedusha, as the Gemara B'Charis Daf Nun Amud Aleph clearly explains. When Ayatollah Khomeini Yamach Shemai came to power in Iran, 3 Yidden were ready to die on Mesiras Nefesh to save this bowl. What is this bowl, and what is so important about it? 200 years ago, a Zilberschmidt, a silversmith, living in Iran, went by and saw the ancient palace of Coinage, the ancient palace of Cyrus the Great. And he saw a wall that shows how the Yidden come to Coinage, the Yidden come to Cyrus and ask permission to build by Yesheni. And not only does Coinage give them permission, he gives them mitlin, he gives them supplies to which to go and build by Yesheni. Being a silversmith, this Yid in Iran spent 6 months making the silver bowl and carving a copy on this silver bowl of the entire wall of the palace of Coinage, showing the Yidden coming to Coinage for asking permission to build by Yesheni. And not only does Coinage give them permission, Coinage gives them supplies to go build by Yesheni. The story ends at the base with the soldiers of Coinage marching with supplies to go and build by Yesheni. I'm going to show you a few details of all these panels, and there are many, many panels on this silver bowl.